Hello there and welcome to the Cluey Learning information video for parents and for students preparing for examinations. Hi, my name's Karen McDade and I'm the Head of Mathematics here at Cluey Learning. To give you a little bit of background about me, my teaching experience began in primary school. I then moved on to teach high school mathematics, after which I taught mathematics education to university students going on to become teachers. I'm currently the president of the New South Wales Mathematical Association and have served on the Council for the Australian Mathematics Association on their executive board for 5 years. I was on the board curriculum committee for the Australian Curriculum Mathematics and the New South Wales Mathematics K-10 syllabus development from 2010 to 2012, and I have been working with the New South Wales Education Standards Authority on the current rewrite of the curriculum and the senior numeracy course pilot. I hope that the following information can go some way to helping you as parents to support your children, and that your children might gain some tips and tricks that might alleviate their stress as they prepare for their exams. I have frequently been asked by parents about how they can support their children to prepare for exams. These exams include NAPLAN, selective schools and scholarships exams, and the higher stakes exams that children encounter in Year 12. I thought it might be worthwhile separating these out, as the advice I would provide for each, although similar, there are differences that target different groups of students. So let's take a look at NAPLAN first. I'm sure that you are aware that NAPLAN stands for the National Assessment Program for Literacy and Numeracy, and it's managed by the Australian Council for Educational Research, or ACER. It's also managed by the Australian Curriculum Assessment and Reporting Authority, or as we call it, ACARA. This test is administered in years 3, 5, 7, and 9. It's a diagnostic, and its purpose is to establish the growth points of children as they progress through school. The student data is analysed by schools to identify the individual students who may require support, and is also used to determine long-term school planning. NAPLAN tests the outcomes that have been covered in the previous 2 years of school. It is almost impossible to review or revise 2 years of learning to prepare for NAPLAN. If students are already behind, then perhaps they need additional support, but this would not necessarily include studying specifically for NAPLAN. It would be more advantageous to help them review the learning over a longer period of time so that they can establish strong connections as they acquire new learning. Instead, the best way to prepare children for NAPLAN is to reduce the focus on the test, hence reducing their stress, but to expose them to the types of questions they will encounter so they are not surprised by what they see. This is the same advice for academically able students who sit the scholarship tests. These tests are administered also by ACER, and applicants are required to demonstrate a range of skills such as being able to interpret, infer, make deductions, and especially to think critically. The tests are not curriculum-based and therefore do not test the ability to retrieve learned knowledge, and they're not diagnostic where NAPLAN is. However, the best way to prepare children for a scholarship test is to expose them to the types of questions they're likely to see on the test so that they are familiar with the style. Cluey can offer support with programs that expose students to the types of questions that they may encounter in both NAPLAN and the scholarship tests. While NAPLAN and the scholarship tests are not what one might consider high-stakes assessments, the end-of-school exam that all students must complete if they continue to Year 12 have become what most students believe will guide their lives. There is no argument that the end-of-school exams are incredibly stressful for children, and helping your child to navigate these stresses is also a difficult time for parents. Having experienced 2 of my own children and now my stepdaughter preparing for HSC this year, I feel your anguish. Parents have said that they feel helpless when they witness their children struggling with exam pressure, and they don't want to be badgering their children all the time about studying. But they worry when they see their children not taking their exam preparation seriously. Let's face it, most parents just want their children to succeed. And if we're honest, it's because we know the errors that we made and we want to protect them from repeating our mistakes. The best thing you can do as a parent is to reassure your child that the exams they're about to do are a measure of only a small aspect of their potential. The following slides contain advice that you can share with your children. You may wish to stop the video and watch the remaining slides with them, or you may wish to take some notes. Some of the information applies to all students, but the last few slides are probably more pertinent for students in Year 11 and 12. So, as parents, how many of us have experienced our Year 7 or our Year 8 child coming up to us and saying, "I've got an exam or an assessment task due tomorrow, can you help me with it?" And then all of a sudden, there's questions that they can't answer and they don't know how to move ahead. My advice is ask for help early. Don't leave it to the day or the night before an assessment task is due. If you have identified a problem early on, then Cluey Learning can certainly support students with appropriate learning programs that address their specific needs. Set up a daily study plan, a couple of hours every night after school. Make sure you include some time for friends and other outside school commitments that you might have, such as sport. Tell your friends and your family when you are studying and ask them not to disturb you. Every 25 minutes, take a 5-minute stretch break. This will keep your blood pumping and ensure that you don't get stiff. Don't overdo coffee or caffeinated drinks. Instead, drink plenty of water. This helps to keep you and your brain hydrated. Make sure you get plenty of sleep. Lack of sleep contributes to impaired cognitive performance and ineffective memory consolidation. In some states and territories, students are permitted to bring into their exam a prepared booklet of notes. But even if your state doesn't permit a booklet, you could construct a learning summary to refer to when you're studying. If you haven't already done this, these study notes can be a 1 or a 2-page summary of a topic with examples of how to answer a question. For maths, you might include a formula, how to apply it. It might also include a textbook page number or exam questions from a particular past paper. In mathematics, students in most states are provided a reference sheet, which is formulae that they may require to answer questions. These sheets are available from the beginning of Year 11 and won't change for the duration of your 2-year course. It is really important that you familiarize yourself with each of these formulae and where they sit on the page and what they are used for. So this advice is particularly pertinent for students in Year 11 and 12 who are completing either preliminary high-stakes examination or end of school high-stakes examination. First of all, check which equipment you're permitted to bring into the exam room. States and territories have very, very strict lists about what you're permitted in. Make sure you read your exam timetable carefully, check your room number, and check any other details that you might need to know in advance of the exam. For maths, make sure that you check with the Education Authority website in your state which equipment and which calculators you are permitted to use in the examination. There are very strict guidelines on most education authorities, and you need to make sure that you are familiar with the type of calculator that you are permitted to use. And practice questions by topic as you complete them. Redo questions if you need to. It certainly won't hurt you to do the same exams more than once. You should practice your tests under time conditions. That way you will know how much time you should devote to each section. So here we are at the pointy end of your school career. The night before your exam, double check the times of your exams and the rooms in which you will complete your exam. Bring 2 calculators in case one stops working. Most states and territories permit you to do that. Check that both are in the correct mode and make sure they have new batteries. Nothing worse than getting into an exam and finding out that your pens aren't working. Make sure your pencils are sharpened and bring any additional equipment suggested by your education authority in your state. There may be questions that require their use. For example, a pair of compasses or a ruler. Eat a good breakfast or a lunch, whatever time of day the exam is. Make sure it's not too heavy because you could be falling asleep in the exam. Make sure it's enough that you're not going to feel hungry during the exam. Give yourself plenty of time to get to the venue, and so that you have at least half an hour to spare when you get there. There's nothing more stressful than being held up in traffic or missing the train and having minutes to spare before commencing the exam. Bring a bottle of water and a watch so that you can check your time and see how you're going. That bottle of water must have a blank label or no label at all. So now you've walked into the exam room, you've found your table and chair, and you've sat down. Take a couple of deep breaths. It helps to calm the nerves and provides oxygen to the brain. When the invigilator has supplied you with the question and answer booklets or the exam paper, check that you have the correct number of question and answer booklets as stated on the front of the exam. When instructed, make sure you write your student number and your full student name on the front of every booklet. If you have allocated reading time, take the time to read over the paper once it's been distributed. Maybe not go right to the back, but certainly have a look at some of the questions that you've seen at the front. Write clearly in black pen, as most papers now are scanned and marked online. Using a pencil or a blue pen might result in your paper not scanning correctly. If drawing diagrams in mathematics or in any other subject, you can use a pencil to draw the diagram, but make sure you go over it clearly in pen. Put a line through any errors, but don't rub them out, and don't use whiteout or scribble them out. Markers in most cases will do their best to give you the marks rather than trying to take marks away. And they will look at all the work you present, even if you've crossed it out. I hope that some of this information has been valuable for you as parents and your children preparing for exams. The most important thing I can advise is to start your preparation early. Study a little and often. Then as the exam date draws closer, you should increase the time you spend studying. Asking for help a week away from the exam might be helpful to consolidate specific concepts, but if you require additional help for more challenging topics, then you should consider seeking help much earlier. Cluey Learning can support your state's curriculum for English and Maths from Year 2 to Year 12 and in Chemistry from Year 11 and 12. Thank you for your time, and may I wish all parents patience and strength, and all students every success in whatever exam processes you are undertaking. While the Year 12 one is the biggie, it is only one test on one day and will never again be used to measure your achievements beyond school. Best of luck from Cluey Learning and from me.